Hello everyone, Professor Cicerelli. Got another grammar video for you today. And before I start, I should just say I'm really grateful for the people who are watching the videos and leaving comments. I know it is a small and relatively insignificant thing that I have 2 subscribers now on YouTube, but it's it's encouraging to me. It helps keep me motivated making these videos for you. So if you like these videos, if you find them helpful, leave a comment for me. Let me know how they're helping. Let me know if I can improve them. That also is something I'm happy to do in subsequent videos. And if you feel like these videos will be useful to you, I try to put them out every week. If you feel that they are useful to you, just subscribe and follow me. Um, if there are any videos that you find you'd like to see, let me know. Leave me a comment. I put up I put up a video on the difference between to lay and to lie. Check that video out. And I also put out a video on the difference between being disinterested and uninterested. So if there's a question you have grammatically about something, just leave me a comment and I can make a video about it. So what I wanted to talk today about are prepositions. So prepositions are really important in a sentence. You really can't write any sort of complicated sentence at all if you don't have prepositions in it. And the reason I like to begin talking about prepositions with this image of the house here, the sort of builder set and the house, is it's useful to think about prepositions as these connector pieces. Okay, they are the pieces that hold the structure together, and similarly in a sentence, they are one of the parts of speech that hold the sentences together. There is glue, I guess you could say. I've got another video about conjunctions, and conjunctions are also these connector words. And so in that video, I talk about the differences between prepositions and conjunctions. But for now, just think of prepositions as these connector pieces. They are different from conjunctions. We're going to see, if you watch that conjunction video, you'll see that conjunctions can do a lot more grammatically speaking than prepositions can. But prepositions are also vital and instrumental in our sentences. So what are prepositions? Prepositions are words that come before nouns. They are prepositioned before nouns. The etymology or the structure of that word preposition tells you exactly where to find prepositions in a sentence. They are prepositioned. They come before nouns. So if I ever ask you to locate prepositions, and I will in a little bit, you look to the nouns and you look to if there is a word before that noun, it might be, or it's likely to be, a preposition. Okay, so prepositions come before nouns, and another way to think of them is that they connect or hold nouns or pronouns in a sentence. All they can do, their role as these connector pieces, is that they hold nouns and pronouns in a sentence. They can't do anything else. They're limited in that regard. Conjunctions can do more. So think of the red piece as nouns and pronouns, and the joint piece there as the prepositions. So that's what they do. They hold nouns and pronouns in a sentence. In other words, they connect nouns to other nouns, nouns to pronouns, pronouns to nouns, but they can also connect verbs to nouns as well. Okay. 2 kinds of prepositions, and I will explain point number 2 in more detail in the next slide or the slide after that. So 2 kinds of prepositions. There are prepositions of space and there are prepositions of time. So what I mean by prepositions of space, prepositions of time, is that the prepositions of space are showing relationships with nouns in space. So For example, in, on, under, below, above, etc. Okay, etc. is not a preposition. I'm just saying the list goes on. So, for example, showing a relationship between two nouns in space, I might use the preposition in. The book in my backpack. Okay, what's the relationship? Well, the relationship is between the two nouns, book and backpack, and it is a relationship of space. It's the relationship that one is in the other. Okay. Book and table. I could say the book is under the table. The relationship is between the book and the table, and it's a relationship of space. One is underneath the other one. Okay. I could also show this relationship of space if I were relating a verb to a noun. Remember, we said that I can connect verbs to nouns as well with prepositions. So if I drove under the bridge. Okay, the relationship is between a verb and a noun. The relationship is between my driving and the bridge. The driving is happening under the bridge. So the relationship is between the verb of to drive and the bridge. Okay, and it's a relationship of space because spatially I'm going under the bridge. And I could also have prepositions of time that show relationships between nouns in time. Okay, sequentially. Okay, so for example, we could say like we arrived in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes. Okay. So what is the relationship there? The relationship there is between my arriving, the verb, okay, and the time, 5 minutes. Right? So arrived in 5 minutes. Okay. I could also show a relationship between nouns in time. I could say that the party was before dinner. Okay, so what's the relationship here? The relationship is between two nouns, party and dinner. Okay, but it's a relationship of time. One happened before the other. Okay, so it's a relationship of time. So you've got prepositions of space, you've got prepositions of time. You notice that some of the prepositions of space also show up in that time category, and they're just used differently. So whereas I might use that preposition in both categories, it's being used differently in the sense that book in backpack is not the same as arriving somewhere in 5 minutes. Okay. All right. So let's have a look at just another slide here that explains or expands upon this idea of prepositions holding or connecting nouns in a sentence. Okay, so as we said, nouns, the prepositions are always going to be prepositioned before nouns. So if you look at my little equation here, preposition plus noun, that preposition is always going to be in this place. It's never going to be on the other side of the noun, right? So I've got my preposition plus my noun, and what that's called, that preposition plus the noun, that's called a prepositional phrase. So I gave you some sample sentences before about like in 5 minutes, in my backpack. So that preposition plus the noun that follows it is what's called a prepositional phrase. Okay, that word phrase is gonna be important grammatically when especially when we talk about conjunctions, because conjunctions when we talk about conjunctions, or if we in the other video when I talk about conjunctions, I'm going to use the word clause very often when we're talking about conjunctions. The basic difference between a phrase and a clause is that a clause will always have subjects and verbs that make it up. A phrase will always be missing a subject, a verb, or missing both. Okay, so in the case of a prepositional phrase, I'm missing actually both a subject and a verb. Okay, because the noun that is in my prepositional phrase is not a subject. It's always going to be an object. Okay, grammatically, it's always going to be an object. So nice handy rule for yourself that you can write down, and maybe I should have jotted it on the slide for you, is that you'll never find the subject of a sentence in a prepositional phrase, ever. What will be in a prepositional phrase will always be an object, grammatically. Okay. So have a look at, I've got two prepositional phrases. One is a prepositional phrase that relates to space. Okay, the first one, in the woods. Okay. And the other one is a prepositional phrase of time, in 2 seconds. And so I could build anything I wanted around this. If I looked at my prepositional phrase that relates to space, I could say that I could say the man in the woods. Okay. What two nouns am I relating there? I'm relating the man to in the woods. Okay, I'm relating woods and man, and one is in the other. Okay, with my prepositional phrase of time, I could do exactly the same thing. The game was in 2 seconds. I mean, or the game. How about the game? Not the game. A game can't last 2 seconds. Just say we will leave in 2 seconds. Okay. So what am I relating there? I'm relating the leaving to the time. Okay. I'm relating verb to noun there. Remember I said, back to the other slide, with prepositions I can always relate. I can relate nouns to other nouns, and I can relate verbs to other nouns. Okay. But what I want you to see in this slide is that those prepositional phrases are they act as what are called modifiers. Okay. Modifiers are just words or phrases that describe other words in a sentence. So that prepositional phrase in the woods, that whole thing in the woods, in that example I gave you of man in the woods or the man in the woods, think of that prepositional phrase as like a modifier or a big adjective that describes the man. Okay. And same within 2 seconds. Think of that whatever the exact, I forget the sentence I gave you, but or we arrived in 2 seconds, or we will arrive in 2 seconds. Think of that in 2 seconds as a modifier that is describing the verb arriving. Okay, so from basic grammar that the part of speech that modifies nouns is what are called adjectives. So think of that in the first example of the man in the woods. Think of in the woods as a prepositional phrase that's acting kind of like an adjective. And in the second example of we arrived in 2 seconds, in 2 seconds is describing or modifying arrived, right? So think of in 2 seconds as acting almost like an adverb. Adverbs are those words that describe or modify verbs. Okay. Now, a general rule when it comes to our prepositional phrases, or with modifiers in general, and I can do if you want a whole separate video on modifiers, let me know, because modifiers are not just prepositional phrases. Modifiers can be single words as well. So if you want a video on that, let me know. But prepositional phrases acting like modifiers, the rule with when you're using any modifier in an English sentence is you want that modifier to be as close to the word it is describing as possible. Okay, so that prepositional phrase, if in the woods is describing man, I want it to be either immediately before man or after man. Okay, I don't want it to be farther away from the word it's modifying, because then what I end up with is a sentence that has confusing syntax, where the elements of the sentence are not in the right place. Okay, let's look at some examples. I want to look at some examples and see if you can identify the prepositional phrases in these sentences, and then also ask yourself if those prepositional phrases are in the right place. So what we're going to do in the next slide is see if we can identify the prepositional phrases, decide whether they're prepositional phrases of space or time, and then ask ourselves if they're in the right place. Okay, so have a look here. I've got some sentences for you. Okay. Look at that first one. In the morning, we will watch the sunrise in our car. Okay, let's look at that. Can you find the prepositional phrases in there? So the first one, same preposition actually is used here. So I've got. So actually, let's do what I suggested, which is look to the nouns. Okay, I've got the noun of sun. That's one. I've got car. That's another one. And I've got we. Okay. What's before the sun? Watch. That's a verb. Okay. What's before? Oh, sorry. Morning is another one. Also, morning. I've got in. Preposition. What's before we? I got a comma. Nothing before it. And then car, or our car. I've got another in. Okay. So my two prepositional phrases in that sentence, I go to more. I've got morning. I've got we. I've got sun. I've got car. I don't have anything before this one. I've got something before morning, which is in, and I've got something before car, which is in also. Now, in the morning, preposition of time, right? Okay. In our car, in is a preposition of space there. Okay. Now let's ask ourselves, are the prepositions in the right place? Okay. Well, are the prepositional phrases in the right place? Okay. So what's my prepositional phrase? That's I've got in, that's the preposition, and the noun that comes after it, remember. Sorry. So that's our formula. So in is my preposition, and the noun that comes after it is the morning. So in the morning is my modifier. Okay. What is it modifying? Well, it's talking about us, we. We're going to do something's going to happen to us in the morning. So morning is describing or modifying the we here. And what about in our car? So that's our other prepositional phrase. So I've got in, it's my preposition, and what's the noun that comes after it? Our car. Okay. Now, okay, so we're going to be doing something in the morning. So I've got in the morning is describing we. But look at where in our car is placed. What word is it closest to? It's closest to rise here. Remember, prepositional phrases can describe or modify verbs, or they can describe or modify nouns. And right now, in our car is closer to rise. Okay. So what that's telling us is that the sun is going to rise in our car. We don't mean that. Okay. We don't mean that. What we mean is that we're going to be in our car and we're going to watch the sunrise. And we're going to do that in the morning. Okay. So we're going to be existing in the morning. Okay. Relationship of time. And we're going to also be in our car, relationship of space. Okay, so what I need to do to fix the syntax of this is I can't, because I don't mean that the sun is rising in the car. What I mean is we're in the car. So what I need to do is put this prepositional phrase in our car closer to the word it's describing, which is we. Okay, I could do that two ways. I could say, in the morning, in our car, we will watch the sunrise. Or say, in the morning, we, in our car, will watch the sunrise. I think it sounds better to say, in the morning, in our car, we will watch the sunrise. Okay. Let's look at the next one, and I'll have you look at the third and fourth one on your own. Look at those two sentences, the third and the fourth one, and do exactly what I told you, which is identify the prepositional phrases, and then if there's one or more than one, identify the prepositional phrases. Ask yourself if it's a prepositional phrase of space or time, and then decide whether it is in the right place. And put those in the comments below. The third and fourth sentence. Do that with the third and fourth sentence. I'm not going to do them for you. Throw it down in the comments for me, and I'll let you know if they're right. Okay, let's look at the second one, and this will be the one we wrap up with. Okay, so she gave the book to John for math class. Okay, so we're looking for prepositional phrases here. So we first got to, before we can find a prepositional phrase, we got to find our prepositions. Okay, so we look to the nouns, just like we did in the previous sentence. Okay, so I've got the preposition of, I got the noun of she. Okay, I've got the noun of book. I've got the noun of John. I've got the noun of, and I've got math class. Okay. Math is just the adjective describing class, so I'll treat them as one thing, math class. Okay, so let's look. Remember we said prepositions are prepositioned. So anything before she, no, it's the beginning of the sentence. Okay, but what about book? Okay, I've got something before book, yeah, but it's gave. Gave is a verb, so not a preposition. What about John? I've got to. Okay, to John. Okay, that's one of my prepositions. And then math class, I've got for math class. Okay, so I've got two prepositional phrases, to John and for math class. Let's figure out. To John, is that a relationship of space or a relationship of time? It's a relationship of space. I'm relating the book to John, and it's a relationship in space. It's existing in space. And for math class, this is a tricky one. For math class, I don't know if I would call that a relationship of time or a relationship of space. It has more to do with purpose. I would say it's more a relationship of space than it is of time, but that's a tricky one because really we're talking about purpose here. Okay, so let's look at them. So we did that. So I would say for math class, I would say it's more a relationship of space than of time. Now let's ask ourselves: Are they in the right place? Okay, the book to John. The book was given to him. So okay, that's to John is describing to whom the book was given. So it makes sense that the book is right next to John. We wouldn't want to move that anywhere. Okay, now what about for math class? Okay, what about for math class? Right now, for math class, this prepositional phrase, which again we said is acting like a modifier, for math class, what is that describing or modifying in the sentence? It's actually describing or modifying whatever it's closest to, whatever noun it's closest to. When I ask you what it's modifying, I'm asking you what noun is it closest to. And what it's closest to is John. Okay. Now we don't mean that John is for math class, right? We don't mean that. We mean the book is for math class. The purpose of the book, or the subject that the book deals with is math. Right? And so this prepositional phrase for math class is in the wrong place. Okay, so I would say the syntax of this sentence could be improved, and we need to move for math class to the closest to the noun it is describing as possible, and that would be the book. So how could I do that? Figure it out. Yeah, she gave the book for math class to John, because the book is for a math class, and so we've got to move that as close to the noun it's modifying. Okay, all right. So like I said, that was the discussion of prepositions. Let me know what you thought. If you found it helpful, let me know. And like I said, try those. Anybody who's watching, throw it down in the comment section. Try those last two sentences. During the hockey game, my family ate hot dogs, and in order to improve the ocean conditions in the city need to change. Try both of those, and let me know what the prepositional phrases are, and whether they're prepositional phrases of space or time, and then whether they're in the right place. Now, one other point I want to make before we sign off, and you probably noticed it in the first and third sentence, that whenever you have a prepositional phrase at the beginning of a sentence, it's always useful to separate that preposition prepositional phrase from the rest of the sentence with commas. So that's a good rule, and I'll have a whole separate video on commas to give you information on commas. But a general rule with prepositional phrases at the beginning of a sentence: separate them off from the rest of the sentence with commas. It just makes it easier. And the reason it makes it easier is because as we said, every prepositional phrase has a, where is it? Every prepositional phrase is a preposition plus a noun. And so what can get a little tricky is if I've got a prepositional phrase like in the morning and then I've got another noun right after it, what might end up happening is the reader might confuse, without a comma, the reader might confuse the nouns here. Let me show you what I mean. And like I said, I'll have you do this. I'll have you do this sentence fully in the comments section down below. But look at this last sentence real quick. Read it to yourself. Okay. Now be honest. How many of you in reading that sentence read at first, in order to improve the ocean conditions, and then stopped and went back and was like, oh, wait, something's wrong? Okay. How many of you read, in order to improve the ocean conditions, and then you were like, and then you realized something was up? So this is exactly the reason why you need commas after your prepositional phrases. So in order to improve the ocean conditions, that's a big prepositional phrase. Sorry, in order to improve the ocean. Sorry, I messed it up myself right there. In order to improve the ocean, comma. Okay. Why? Because if I don't get in the habit of putting commas after my prepositional phrases, what your brain will do is your brain will go, well, ocean is a noun, conditions is a noun. So what he means is not ocean, comma, conditions. What he means is ocean conditions. That's not what the sentence means. So the way you clarify the meaning is you put a comma there so that the reader doesn't automatically turn ocean into an adjective that's describing conditions.